X's and O's Sports Speak podcast, where we let you behind the curtain and in the minds of the coaches and people affiliated with sports throughout the state of Oklahoma and beyond. Now that we got that out the way, I got a special guest with me today. Good friend of mine. He actually happens to be from my hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma. We connected this year, and this guy coaches football, coaches wrestling. He did some track in the spring, I believe, last year. And then he's a health guru, low-key bodybuilder, Will Delk. How you doing, Will Delk?
Man, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Now, man, I've been trying to get you in the room for a while. I know we've been hitting and missing, but we finally got him sat down. So we're just going to jump right into it. You have broken down some of your childhood to me, man. You've been a little bit of a journeyman. You had sort of an unconventional upbringing, right?
No, yeah, definitely.
Now, where all have you lived, man? Because when I asked you where you from, you gave me 2 or 3 different answers.
Yeah, well, I was born in Duncan, Oklahoma, and I lived in Marlow for just a short period of time. And then we moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
From there, in a stint, I had lived twice in Granville in the mix just because of my mother going in and out of penitentiary. So when she went in, I went with an uncle that lived in Granville. And then I'd go back to Tulsa after that year or however long that stint may be. But for the most part, I usually say I'm from Tulsa because that's where I spent the longest amount of my time.
Okay. Now, what age were you when you got to Tulsa? I know you may have said it to me. Maybe I missed it.
I'd be first grade.
Oh, dang. We're talking 6-ish.
Yeah,
all right.
6.
Now, well, how was it growing up, man? I know you mentioned your mom being kind of in and out of the picture.
Right.
So how did you deal? How did you cope with all of that coming up as a young one?
Man, I'll be honest with you. Sports probably helped me out the most. But then obviously I had really, really good friends and coaches. But yeah, growing up, it wasn't, where we coach now. It's not your typical background of most kids here. Mm-hmm. It's just, honestly, it's your typical background of inner city type kids. But yeah, the way I cope is just basically, the relationships I made with coaches. I was that kid that coach always had to go pick up. You know what I mean? If there was a practice or a game, I got brought home from them because I never really had any type of support at games. My parents had, well, not really. I said parents. Let me rephrase that. My mother, she had different things to do than besides come and support me at a game or something.
I got you. Now, were you able to? Did that affect you, like right then in that moment, or did you have to look back later on in life and be like, yeah, man, that kind of messed with me a little bit?
I wouldn't say that it affected me, but right. I did notice.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I even noticed, in first and second grade, we'd come in and, kids would be talking about how their mom or dad helped them on their homework, when they got stuck. And I just never really had that. I just kind of did the best I could do and showed up at school, man. That's about it.
Right. What type of student were you, though? Were you one of those class clowns pain in the butt, or did you just kind of, be fairly compliant? Or
right.
did you have that edge because of maybe not having?
Here's the deal. Like, I would probably say I was a class clown. I like to talk. I like to laugh. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Most definitely.
I wasn't really the one that tried to fly below the radar.
True.
I did me. I don't know. That's just the best way to put it.
Right.
I talked and got in plenty of trouble, but I would never really say that I was like, that defiant type child or that student, should I say? Like
right.
I'd be a class clown, but when a teacher got onto me or said something, I would be respectful and listen.
That's good, man. That's good. A breath of fresh air, right?
Right.
Now, when it comes to sports particularly, where'd the edge come from? Because you're still a pretty good competitor even now. I watch you on the mat when you're working with your wrestlers that you coach, and you get in the mix. It's instructional, but then every now and again, there's that competitive element where you got to remind them why you are who you are and why they are who they are. Like, where'd that chip come from, man?
Man, to be honest with you, once I started, obviously, being competitive is a natural instinct. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It starts on the playground. Want to win in a sprint or however you want to do it. But when when I moved from Tulsa to Sperry, that'd be like my end of the 7th grade year, probably. I chose to wrestle. I had a cousin that wrestled.
Right.
I knew he wrestled. I wasn't really around. I wasn't really around the sport or anything, but I just loved the idea of everything being on you. You know what I'm saying? You can't really depend on anybody, and that's just how my life kind of was. Is I wasn't dependent on one person, and I always found out that every time I did depend on someone, then they let me down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I just like that aspect. And then in the sport of wrestling, also football. In high school, I played football and I wrestled. I just really, really, really wanted to make a name for myself. You know, I wanted to be known because when I moved from Tulsa to Sperry, it's kind of it was a much smaller school.
No doubt.
And if you know anything about like small towns, like you always know like the Dones or you know these people, you know certain people by the last name. They got the name, you know.
Right.
I was like,
for better or for worse.
For better or worse, yes. So I was like, I want to make a name for myself.
True.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's just a matter of, I guess, self-pride of wanting to be good. And I, you know, honestly, like I had that mentality that I wanted to be the baddest dude. You know, whether it was on the field, on the mat, or just on the street. Like,
on the street.
Seriously, like I mean, I just want to be the baddest dude. I don't know. That's just me.
Now that's not little man syndrome, is it?
No, definitely not.
You diagnose it a different way?
No, I wouldn't say it was little man syndrome because I'm not going out there looking for it. You know, I'm not running around like a little banded rooster with my chest puffed up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get, you know, I'm pretty laid back, but, you know, like when I was in high school, I don't know. I just didn't really care to take a whole lot of stuff, I guess, and for a lack of better terms.
True that.
And it's not like I'm like that now. I mean, here's the deal. At any time, if you believe in something, you should be willing to fight for it. You know what I mean?
I believe it.
You know, like if a dude disrespects me, I just feel like from respect, I want that respect. He should respect me.
Whatever it takes to get that, we're just gonna have to go.
Right.
I like that, man. I like that. So it's not all the way out of him, man. He's just a little older.
So yeah, going back, I definitely wouldn't call it little man syndrome.
Right.
You know.
I got you. Good deal. Now, on the sports tip, what was first? Did you start off playing football first? That's the very first sport you got introduced to?
No, the very first sport. So actually, it's kind of funny. I played a lot of sports. But
this is what I didn't know about you, man.
Right.
Okay.
I have played a ton of sports. But the very first sport that I played was obviously baseball, T-ball, and then going into later on would be baseball.
Okay.
And then the next sport after baseball would be football.
Mm-hmm. And now, why'd you put down the bat and the glove, man? Did you just kind of grow out of it or take a different approach to something?
Yeah. I played all the way up till my 7th grade, or actually my 6th grade year. I moved to Sperry, and then the whole summer league, summer ball thing, it just didn't work for me. You know, I couldn't. I didn't have parents to drive me back and forth, you know, to play club stuff, and I don't know. I just, like you said, I just kind of lost the passion for it. I don't want to say that because I hear kids say that all the time.
Yeah,
it's not like I lost the passion. I'll just be honest with you. I just thought I had better things to do with my time than play baseball. I got you. You know.
Then football came, and that was a little more your speed.
Yeah, I played football. I loved football. You know, I played baseball, but my first love was football. And I just remember all the way back when I first started, you know, people would ask, well, what do you want to do after graduating? Like, play in the NFL.
NFL, no question.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, I wasn't very smart, obviously.
Here's the basket, and here are all my eggs.
Did not realize that I was, only going to be 5'7" and 185 pounds. But,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Anyway, that's my first love. I wanted to play football. I loved everything about, NFL and all that whole idea. And I don't know. I just really, really enjoyed the sport of football.
That's good. Fast forward into your teenage years.
Yeah.
How was that, man? You're starting to grow into sort of a young man, and that's usually around the time, at least for me, where I started to gain a little more perspective. I started to be able to read in between the lines, and my BS monitors were a little higher and up to speed during that time. Did your life change at all once you got to be a teenager, or was it the same with the lack of stability and support system?
No, actually, so my 8th grade year, I moved to Sperry my 7th grade year, my 8th grade year.
Right.
Like I said, I started wrestling at the end of 7th grade, kind of late. It's a late start. The season ends in February. I started in the end of January. So, like I said, maybe had like a month under my belt. Then 8th grade, I wrestled. I met a guy named Dusty Delk, and we kind of were friends in a sense, and kind of hit a hard time where my mom was gone.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, I had a stepdad in the picture. I had a stepdad ever since I was in 5th grade, but they weren't real good for each other. You know what I mean? But anyway, she had left, was gone, and he was kind of there, but he was out there. You know what I mean? He was just strung out, and it just really wasn't a good situation. And at the point, like you said, you know, the BS and your meter and all that, you kind of start reading between the lines. Like I figured it out real quick that it was not the best situation for me. So I kind of bounced around from place to place with friend to friend, you know, going to school and whatnot. And then Dusty was like, "Hey, why don't you just come out to my place? Stay with us for a couple weeks." I said, "All right, I'll do that." And so went to the house, got some clothes, and then went out to his house for like 2 weeks. And 2 weeks turned into quite some time. My mother was still living in North Tulsa, not sure exactly where, you know. My stepfather, he was at the house that we lived in, but it ended up catching fire, and he died in the fire. So I lost a lot of things, you know, just like trophies and some of that.
Memorabilia.
Yeah, memorabilia type stuff.
Gotcha.
But I lost a lot of stuff to that, and then after that had happened, I knew at that point my mother probably wasn't coming back to Sperry, and so I just kind of accepted it, and the Delks accepted me.
Right.
So it kind of gave me that stability that I needed, you know. So I lived with them. I mean, I ended up changing my name. You know, my biological last name is Shelton, and now my last name is Delk. And I didn't do that until I was 22, 21. You know, they wanted to do it, and I really did it just for the aspect of my children, my future children, you know, because I wanted them not really have a whole lot of questions, but to have a grandma and grandpa that was going to be there.
For sure.
Know? So, yeah.
Man, that's a lot to take in for a youngin', for a teenager. So during that time when you were staying with the Delks, nobody was keeping tabs on you really at that point, huh? You kind of making your own decisions, living life grown, huh, during that time.
Pretty much.
Yeah, man. Did you fall at all? Did you have any of those moments where you made a mistake just trying to figure some things out, but maybe you were a little bit too young to know exactly what you were doing?
Right. You know, there's not anything that just stands out. It's not like I try to drop out of school. You know, when I think of drop, you know, I'm thinking of like really hitting rock bottom, like really messing up.
True.
I didn't really, you know, try to drop out of school. I still went to practice, still went to school, kept my grades up type deal. But I will say that, you know, I had a lot of freedom, obviously.
Right.
No one keeping tabs on me. And then also, you know, living with the Delks, they take in a teenage boy. It's probably really hard for them to try to figure out how to discipline him or how do I, you know, approach this because he's basically his own person. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so it was really tough. So I had a lot of freedom even there. So, you know, I would party probably more than I should have just because I had a lot of freedom.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And by all means, I made plenty of mistakes, but not any that were, you know, to the extent of
no big ones. Huh?
No big mistakes. No like trying to drop out of school or anything along those lines.
Being a coach, Eric Ford said this to me a couple weeks back. He said when you're a coach, a lot of times coaches are like the top maybe 1, 2, or 3 most influential people in a kid's life. Did you have anybody that you can look back to and be like, hey, this right here, this person here was very instrumental in me staying on track?
No, definitely. Like I said, I've had a lot of great coaches. I mean, I'll go all the way back to when I lived in Tulsa and I played baseball. My coach there, Coach Kellogg, he tried to adopt me then. Like, he wanted to bring me in. He kind of, obviously, he saw the situation that I was in as well. He wanted to bring me in. I never did that. I never wanted to do that, you know, at that point. But he was very influential. In fact, he actually came back into my life later on in high school where he was running an oil and gas company type deal. And I started working for him in the summers just to make some money because I needed to do that. You know, I didn't want to basically depend on the Delks to provide me money when I could be out making my own money type, you know.
You always had the work ethic.
Yes.
Never been a lazy dude, huh?
No, not really.
Oh, that's good. No,
Yeah,
no wonder you never made that mistake.
Right. But no, I had him, and then obviously in junior high when I played football over at Foster Middle School, I had a coach there. His son played. He really kind of brought me underneath his wing. He was the one that come pick me up. You know, he'd make sure I got fed after the games, type deal. And then he would obviously drop me off. And then, I mean, he let me stay at his place quite a bit. I mean, I did hang out with Josh quite a bit. But he was pretty influential. And then once I moved to Sperry, Coach Park, man, he's the high school football coach, and he's the high school wrestling coach over there. He's been there for 20 years now. He is by far probably one of the most influential people that I've had in my life. And I owe a lot to that guy. Like, you know, I'm not saying that he did anything for me,
Right.
but he helped push me in the right direction. Like I said, I had a lot more freedom than most people, so I would kind of party or whatnot. You know, he kind of sat me down and told me just basically how it was and how I wasn't going to accomplish certain things that I wanted to accomplish within wrestling if I wasn't going to stop doing the extracurricular things outside of wrestling. And then later on, actually, I went on to college to wrestle, and that dude, I mean, he paid for my cell phone. He wanted to make sure I had a cell phone so he could communicate with me.
Yeah.
You know, he sent me money, and it wasn't like I was asking. I mean, I never asked for a handout.
Yeah, you seem like a real proud individual that wouldn't do that.
Right. No, I'm not real big on handouts, but you just kind of got to know Coach Park. Like, he wasn't going to allow me to turn it down, so I might as well just take it. Honestly, it'd be easier, you know, than trying to deny that. But yeah, he would send me money while I was in college, and he made sure I had a cell phone all through college because he knew I was going to be away from home, and it'd be a lot easier for him and the Delks to communicate with me and make sure that I was good, basically.
When it came to sports, when did you make the distinction between football and wrestling? You know, how did you know?
What do you mean by it?
Well, you know how we got a lot of athletes these days, and we
Yes.
share some of them too. Some
Right.
of us coaches, and they play 2 and 3 sports. But then when rubber meets the road, and it's time for them to decide what they want to pursue on the collegiate level, they end up picking one.
Right.
When did that moment occur to you? Like, okay, you know what? I think I'm gonna go pursue wrestling as opposed to football when I go to college.
Right. Well, I'll be honest with you. I never actually. Once I was in high school, that never really crossed my mind of, well, I'm going to go pursue wrestling or I'm going to go pursue football in college. In high school, I went to Votech for welding.
Right.
You know, I just really, you know, honestly, I thought I was going to be a guy that just went to work after high school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, honestly, I didn't really have college plans. Then my senior year, I started getting some letters in the mail from some small schools for football, and then I had a couple schools talking to me about wrestling. And my wrestling coach, he had told me, you know, which is also my football coach. He said, look, he said, here's the deal. He's like, you can probably go play small school football somewhere, but you're probably going to ride the bench. You know what I mean? Just because of your size and whatnot, you're a small linebacker. You wouldn't be playing linebacker. You'd probably be like a scout, you know, or not a scout team, but a special teams kind of guy. Or you can go wrestle somewhere and fight for the number one spot and go compete. And I immediately, I mean, once he even said that, I just knew. I was like, well, if I'm gonna go do something, I'm gonna wrestle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I can determine my own fate. Basically, I'm not gonna be too small. There's a weight class for everyone, and that's kind of the beauty of wrestling is you can take all shapes and sizes.
True.
You know what I mean? From 106 all the way up to 285. Like there's a weight class for somebody.
Dang, that's a hell of a spectrum right there.
Right.
How was that college experience wrestling, man? Was it a culture shock at all, or did you have to have one of those moments?
It was definitely a culture shock. So I went to Oklahoma City University. It's a private school in Oklahoma City, and you know, being in Tulsa and then going to Sperry was a culture shock as well. Just different demographic completely, and then going to college, you know, coming from a small town country, you know what I mean? And then going to Oklahoma City, which the city was fine because, you know, I was used to Tulsa. That didn't really bother me a whole lot. But just the type of, I guess, student that went to OCU besides athletes. It was very different.
Was it tough to interact with them?
I'm trying to be PC here, but
I get you.
it was it was hard to interact. It's just very liberal. Nothing against that, but it was just it's a liberal arts school. I mean, straight up. So there it is. There's a bunch of performance, majors and whatnot. So I don't know.
Wasn't necessarily your cup of tea.
No, in fact, it was pretty tough at first, and then obviously the wrestling aspect of it was a much different pace. I wrestled, I didn't start my freshman year. I didn't really expect to start my freshman year, but then I ended up getting staph really bad, and I got a medical red shirt, so I had an extra year of college to compete. College wrestling was a great experience. I had a my coach, Archie Randall, he was the head wrestling coach over at El Reno back when they won like 11, 12, 13, something like that, state titles consecutively. He's a really, really good high school coach. But I had him in college. He was a good dude. One of the biggest things I think that I don't want to say I regret about my college career, but I was too loyal. And the only reason I say that is no matter what the coach wanted me to do, I didn't question it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I know people probably lost right now, but what I mean by that is weight-wise. I was recruited for a 157 pounder. I never wrestled 157 all 5 years of college. Wrestled 149 and 141. And so my biggest opponent, I felt like was beating the scale. My senior year, I came in at 209, and I cut down to 149. I mean, that's, I had teachers in class that were like, Willis.
Yeah, what's happening?
Will, is everything all right? One thought I was strung out on drugs, and I was like, I know I look like that, but no, I'm not. I promise.
Furthest thing from it.
I promise. But so, and I'm not trying to make excuses, because I know that for performance, but it really did affect me. I feel like I wish I wouldn't have cut so much weight or just agreed to that. But I was one of those guys that if coach says something, that's what coach says. Yeah. And I just did it. And you don't really see that anymore.
No.
And
such a different time now, man.
Oh my gosh, and it is. And then, but it starts from parents.
True.
I feel like the parents get in the way more than they should. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Now, where's the fine line between doing what you're told to do, but also getting to a point to where you need to know why you're doing what it is that you're doing?
Right, kind of like for the betterment for yourself.
Yeah.
Man, I'll be honest with you. I'm not real sure because, like I said, when I was in college and high school, man, if I was sick, had a 103-degree temperature, and my coach texted me and said, "Hey, get up here. We're playing this football game." Well, I'd be loading up, going and play the football game. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's just how it was.
Yeah, but a lot of that is you, though, as a competitor.
Right.
Correct? Not just he said it, I'm going to do it. I'm pretty sure you'd rather be nowhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Lord have mercy.
So, like I said, there is a fine line there, but I don't know. I guess it'd just be willing to do things for, say a team sport. Mm-hmm. It's not about you, man. It's about the betterment of the team as a whole. And if that means you play with kind of a bummed ankle, that means then you play with a bummed ankle. If you're the best dude with a bummed ankle that can't take, no one on the bench can take your spot, we might as well get out there and play.
Mm-hmm. You regret it if you don't.
Right.
Especially if there's even an inkling that, hey, you could have played. And you don't want that narrative either, though.
No, because you're going to live with that for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah. True or not. Right. Oh, man. Now, in college, you actually threw some stories at me, man, whenever we were talking, I guess, off the record about some of the mischief that you would get mixed up in during your college days, man. You care to share?
Yeah, I mean, I'll share a few. I'll just say this. I probably fought a lot more than I probably should have in college, and that also, that's probably an after product of probably partying too much, I'll just be honest. But, man, I'll just tell you this story, okay? So here we are, and I'm with my wife at her 10-year reunion, and I see a guy that's married to one of her friends that she graduated with that actually He went to OCU for a year, and I was his roommate. And we're sitting up here at the bar, and he's like, "Hey, do you remember that time we're at that party?" Da 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 da. And I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, I do not remember what this guy's talking about.
Right.
And he, tells me about, his big fight or whatnot. And I still to this day, I'm sitting there thinking like, wow, was I that far out of it that I don't remember? I was like, I must have missed a lot of stuff in college,
All right.
But, so like I said, I lived it up when I was in college, and then when season rolled around, we did a pretty good job as a team as a whole to kind of hold each other accountable and not partake in that extracurricular stuff during season.
Not as much, or y'all just shut it down altogether?
I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say every dude on the lineup in the lineup shut it down because I doubt that happened. But it wasn't to the extreme that it would have been, say, in the summertime or first of the year of this school year.
Is it safe to say that the guys that you ran with, the majority of them were your teammates?
Oh yeah, hands down. I mean, high school and college. I didn't really in high school. It was kind of easy because our starting defense. There's 11 dudes on a football team on defensive side of the ball or offensive side of the ball. 11 of those guys were 11 starters on our wrestling team as well. So we were a very tight group. Don't get me wrong. I had friends from other sports or other individuals that maybe didn't play sports or whatnot, but those were the guys that I hung out with, and those were the guys that I trusted and whatnot. And then in college, it was I only hung out with wrestlers. That was it. Just dudes that was on my team.
All right. And the team sports is one of the greatest things, man, because of that. And there's no, you can't duplicate that type of camaraderie, I don't think.
Right. No, you cannot.
And also, it makes it easier to go and do business when you actually like the people that you got to go work with.
Oh, for sure.
You got to spend some time with them outside of work in order for that to be true, I would say.
Right.
Now, let's talk about what you do these days, because you're a teacher now and a coach.
Yes.
Did you always know that, hey, man, I think I want to do something within sports? Did you always know you wanted to coach?
Well, like I said, earlier, here's the deal. I always wanted to be a coach. But then, like I said, like my sophomore year, I started thinking of plan Bs or really plan A's, was to go to, I went to Votech for welding because I didn't think I was that kind of kid to go to a college. And I definitely knew for my situation, I wasn't going to be able to have someone pay for my education. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. So I went to Votech for welding. Once I realized I was going to get a scholarship for wrestling, I walked in day one wanting to be a coach. That's what I told my advisor. That's what I want to do. And so instead of going the teaching route, though, like going through a teaching program, I went through and got my degree in kinesiology.
There you go.
So I did it that route, and then just test it out later. But right from the get-go, I wanted to be a coach, and I wanted to kind of pay back because there's so many coaches that I've had that has helped me get to where I'm at today. And if it wouldn't have been for those guys in my life, to actually open up and build a relationship with myself, then I would not be the person I am, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking on this microphone. You know what I mean?
That's big time stuff. I hear a lot of coaches say that players make coaches. Now I guess I wouldn't call a wrestler a player, but the same principle. I guess you could apply. Do you agree with that, or is it twofold, or do the coaches make the athletes?
Explain that a little bit to me real quick.
Well, I guess what he meant by that, and I'm sitting here and I'm listening. He's an older guy, so I always want to respect my elders. But I was trying to understand him, and basically what he was saying was, no matter how good you may be, or how good you may think you are as a coach, if you don't have guys or girls, for that matter, that can go get it done, then it matters not. But I actually happen to think that you got to have some players or some athletes that can produce. But if they could do it on their own, coaches wouldn't exist. So we're pretty vital in that situation.
No doubt. No, I definitely agree to an extent with the guy that you're talking about, your elder that you're talking about. When it comes to, say, football or basketball, if you got two, in basketball, say you got two cats that hands down best dudes in the state, more than likely you're gonna, you guys are gonna be very successful. Now, does that mean that just because those two guys are very, very, very talented that you can just like not worry about practicing and coaching, because now you have three other dudes on the court that you have to coach up and have them understand how to play the game.
Right.
So no, I think really talented players help you look better than than maybe what you are sometimes, because I know for a fact, I don't want to say I know for a fact, but I know some coaches that
seeing it.
may in my terms may not be very good coaches, but they've had extremely good talent. You know what I'm saying, and they've been successful because of that reason.
Yeah.
But to say that coaches aren't needed,
right?
That's a very bold statement.
Yeah.
Because here's your deal as a coach. Like, you have really talented kids, well, then you should focus on your average kids to try to raise them up.
There's always something to do.
Right, there's always something to do. And here's the deal, what's going to happen when those dudes graduate? Like, you better coach your butt off, because then you ain't got anybody step in and pick up where they left off.
Absolutely. It's going to be one of those in-between years.
Exactly.
And those suck.
Or the best term ever, rebuild. It's a rebuilding
year. Coach, we're young, man.
Hey, man, we're young. We're rebuilding. It's all right.
Well, in your opinion, now this is a very subjective question, and I love asking it because I always get a lot of different insight. What, in your opinion, if you can narrow it down to, I guess, one thing or a few things, what is the true mark of a good coach? Or in other words, how do you measure how good a coach is?
I mean, obviously, the first thing that pops to your mind, I think, when you ask anybody that question is going to be wins and losses. Now, do I think that's everything? No. But you can be the most genuine, best guy, really good coach in those terms, but then you'll never be thought of as a good coach if you have, below a 500 record. You know what I mean? So to some extent, like, wins and losses has to play a key. But then again, you have to be able to build relationships with your athletes.
Huge.
So huge, because if you can build a relationship with those athletes, then they're going to be willing to do more things for you, sacrifice more things for you, and work harder for you to try to win, ball games or matches or however you want, whatever sport it may be. But I guess to try to actually answer your question, what makes a good coach would be, you'd have to have a little bit of everything. You have to be the nurturer, you have to be the disciplinarian, you know what I mean? To make a perfect, coach, you'd have to have all those things. And then obviously, I mean, hate to say it, but you have to have a winning record.
You gotta go win.
you gotta win, because if you don't have, like I said, if you don't have a winning record, or if you have a losing record, no one's gonna talk about you being a great coach, whether you are or you aren't. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that actually answered your question.
No, it does.
But it's kind of a tough question, because there's so many different variables that make a good coach.
Right.
And because I've known some coaches that kids, guys that have competed for them, hate them, but they swear by them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they were very successful. So, and it's also a different time, a different era. Like that generation, I feel like you can, back in the day, you could treat kids a different way and they respond differently. Nowadays, I feel like you better put your velvet gloves on. You know what I mean? Like you kind of gotta handle them a little different. You gotta be a little softer.
You gotta finesse things a little more.
Now there you go. That kind of helped me answer my question. That kind of makes a good coach. Like if a coach has been in the game for 15 years, he's gotta be smart enough to acknowledge what his athletes respond to. You know what I mean? If he doesn't acknowledge what they respond to, and he just stays in the same groove that he's always been in, and he starts losing athletes, well then you're not going to be able to be successful by winning or losing or just keeping kids out, for that matter.
Numbers will start getting cut. And that's actually a good segue, because we're both out here. We're at Piedmont, right?
Yes.
And you've been here how long?
So this will be my 4th year.
This is your 4th year, and you, like we talked about earlier, you coached a variety of different sports. I'm pretty sure you've noticed a difference or some differences in the demographic of kids here versus where you have been in your lifetime. And how tough has that journey been for you? Or not the journey, how tough has that task been for you to figure out, okay, I may not need to be so tough on this one, but maybe I need to turn the heat up on this one.
Right.
You know what I mean? Have you had to go through that trial and error?
No, I definitely have. And when I first got here, I thought it was going to be completely different, to be honest with you. When you first pull into town, there's a little rodeo arena. You think it's kind of like country. You got some hard-nosed country kids or whatever. Or at least that's my first initial thought when I first pulled into town. I was like, okay, all right, I can do this.
There you go.
Maybe think like Sperry a little bit.
That's right. We're all guilty of profiling
right.
at least a little bit.
Oh, for sure, it happens. It's natural. But then when I got here, that wasn't the case at all. These kids come from very, I don't know how to explain it or put it in a good way, but
it's a very affluent area, I will say.
Exactly. So they're taken care of very well. There's not a kid that walks this hallway that has any type of wants that he doesn't already have. If he wants it, he gets it type deal. It's not their fault, and I'm not saying that's bad, but it makes it hard because if every place I've ever been, growing up, going to school in Tulsa and then in Sperry, kids had needs, and they didn't get it. You know what I mean? They had stuff they needed, and they didn't get it. Or they had, certain things they had to sacrifice, or struggle, to stay on top. So most of the time, everywhere I've been, the kids have been hard-nosed. At Sperry, kids were country hard-nosed. Tulsa, kids were city but hard-nosed type deal. Just the way it is. And then here, you get here, it's like, to me, I could be wrong, but I think fighting is just natural. Especially among two boys.
At some point, you gotta know.
Testosterone that runs through your body.
Right.
And if I could be considered ignorant for saying this, but if you're 17, 18 years old and you've never been in a fight in your life, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah, listen, I agree with that.
I really think there's something wrong with that.
Right.
If it's immature or ignorance, whatever you want to call it, there is something wrong there that you don't have you don't believe in anything, because if someone disrespects you, then you should stand up and say something. And if it leads to confrontation, it leads to confrontation.
Yeah, this is what it has to be.
Someone, I don't know, someone says something about your mom.
Yeah. That's where it started as a kid.
Mama jokes got old.
They got old quick.
Yes. And so, and if you didn't like it, there was only one way to get it to stop. Is you said something. And then when
two ways, though. Hold on. Some cats, if they had the jokes, then maybe, okay, you can blast back and keep it joking.
Well, yeah.
But if you don't seem like one that has jokes.
No. I didn't really care to joke a whole lot. I did not.
And there's nothing, and folks, we're not advocating just a bunch of violence, man, but it's a part of it. It's a part of it. And sometimes, kids don't just do what you tell them to do just because you tell them to do it. And sometimes you got to threaten and go up a notch. And if we have to do that as coaches, if we're both 16, we have to do that as peers. I say, man, Delk, man, stop messing with me. But you keep poking. Right. Okay, I got to do something now.
Right.
And I hate the thought of some of them having to, for the first time, get to that point as an adult.
Right.
That's scary.
No, for sure.
You're not going to know what to do with yourself.
No, definitely. It's funny because I read an article the other day. I can't exactly remember what the title of it was, but basically about how older generations, growing up, they watch Westerns. You know what I mean? I don't know if you ever watched a Western or not.
I did, yeah.
But if you think of the American cowboy, way back when, I mean, what does he stand for? He's gritty, he's tough, he's honest. You know what I'm saying? And he will definitely fight for what he thinks is right. And kids grew up idolizing cowboys, blah blah blah, doing all these things that were tough and gritty. But now it's this generation, they don't idolize anything like that. They'll idolize, maybe an athlete. Maybe hopefully it's an athlete. Then next thing you know, that dude's going down catching charges. You know what I'm saying? Or they'll idolize something else that's just completely different. But they've gotten away. It's just a very sensitized, and I feel like they're trying to do away with the whole ideal of a man, or it's not okay to be a man. You know what I mean? Like alpha. You don't see that anymore. Like you walk this hallway, like I'll walk this hallway, and I don't see any dude that just is the dude. You know what I mean? You don't have one of those.
Who's the big dog on the yard?
Right. You don't have one of those, and I really feel like it comes from our society. Like they're pushing away. Like if you think about it, back in the day, kids used to play cowboys and Indians. You do that today, you're probably getting suspended for 3 weeks.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Like
right.
Like I'm not saying it's the education system that's doing it, but
I think it's bigger than that.
Oh, it's so much bigger than that. It just drives me insane.
I do think everybody needs to have another gear, so to speak. And something about you that's the no nonsense. And sometimes you have to issue out some of that same treatment that you've been given. Because I talk to my basketball players all the time about us being kind of a program that people thumb their noses at, and it upsets me on one hand because I know we got some guys that can compete, but then on the other hand, I'm like, well, what have we done to change the stigma? So I'm like, hey guys, until you all change it, we're just gonna keep getting everybody's butt to kiss, and it's a pain. But shifting gears, now that we're talking football, your coaching duties. What's your role out there as a football coach? You bumped up to the high school level this year.
I did. So my role there is I'm a inside linebackers coach. So I work with the inside linebackers when we do individual stuff. Yeah. And then obviously I'm on the defensive side of the ball. So obviously my biggest thing is, and coach has talked to me about it before, is I'm really good at building relationships with kids. And
I've seen it.
Yeah, so my biggest part is trying to build those relationships, but also, when you build those relationships, it's kind of a slippery slope because then kids start thinking that, man, we're friends. Yeah. Well, we're not friends. I mean, I care about you, things like that, but we're not friends. If I tell you to do something, you need to do it, whatever. If I need to discipline you, then don't get mad when I got to discipline you because for whatever reason. Yeah. But that, and then also, if you go into like a game situation, I do all the like the strength conditioning, and then we'll do I lead the warm ups, all that good stuff, and I make sure I have depth charts. I got to make sure I have depth charts for everybody. I'm kind of also the get back coach on Friday nights. Got to make sure that the kids are back, and I got to make sure that the coaches are back.
Get back.
Yeah. So that's my duties, man. That's what I do. I try to do it the best I can.
All right. Take me to the weight room because you spend a lot of time in there. Now, not only are you the strength and conditioning coach, or the strength coach, rather, or whatever the title is. It's very dressed up, however we can dress it up here at the high school.
It's all good.
Oh, yeah. But you all get busy in there, man. And you still get in the mix and make sure you keeping your body looking right and everything like that.
I do.
Answer me this. What is the most important thing that people should educate themselves on as far as lifting weights goes before they start lifting weights?
Man, the biggest thing is going to be posture. Just understanding how to maintain a good posture, whether it's, in a squat or like a deadlift situation, or even when you bench. There's a lot of things you're not just relaxed. You got to really focus on how to tighten up certain muscles when you're about to lift. Concentrate on those certain things. But like I said, the number one thing is just posture. It's so many times that it's a back injury when someone gets hurt when they're in the weight room, and then next to back it's shoulder, just because it's the most mobile joint there is on the body. And there's a big fad right now, the whole CrossFit thing and all that, and Olympic lifting, which I'm a fan of Olympic lifting, but I'm not a fan of like the overhead squats or the snatches for high school athletes.
Yeah.
They're just not.
The visual just came in. Ooh, Lord.
You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So they're probably not disciplined enough to keep it locked out and not tear their shoulder up. So for me, for a high school aspect, from a high school standpoint, I don't think the risk is worth the reward. You know what I mean? Or the reward is worth the risk, should I say? I said that backwards.
Yeah.
But yeah. I just really don't. I don't think it is worth the risk.
Now, with you lifting these days, because you're not quite 30 yet, you know what I'm saying? But we're both good.
I'm knocking on the door, but I'm not quite.
Knocking on the door. But what's your goal? What are you after now? Whenever you're in the weight room, are you in there killing it, trying to get yourself yoked up, or are you trying to maintain where you are and just stay defined, or what's on the plan whenever you go in there?
Man, I have phases. I don't just keep doing the same thing. I try to cycle, whether I'm trying to maintain or. Usually wintertime, I pack on some pounds, man. I kind of get, not that I get lazy, but I get lazy with my eating.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? I get lazy with my eating, so I pack on the pounds. Like last year, I got up to 207.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so.
What's ideal for you these days, though?
Oh, I like about 180.
Oh man, yeah, you did get a little crazy.
Yeah, I like about 180, 185. So yeah, no, I did. I got up there. I got tubby. You know, I got pretty. I look good in the shirt, but not with one on or off. I mean, but anyway, so obviously in that situation, I got to where it was mainly trying to lose fat, so I had to really focus on my diet, and I did more endurance style training. Not endurance, more metabolic like conditioning.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Where you're still building, but you're doing it for maybe a set amount of time or higher reps type deal. I wouldn't say endurance. Not like I was going out running. I don't run.
You don't run at all.
Not at all. But
I can't even think of the last time.
But I don't run.
I hear you. I'm the same way unless I'm running them down the court playing some basketball. Now you said something which took me where I was wanting to go next. You said something about your eating habits. I don't necessarily want to use the word diet, or maybe that's what you do. But how do you eat? What's a normal meal for Will Delk?
Depends the time of the day, obviously.
Okay.
In the morning, though, I usually have like 3 eggs and probably half a cup of oatmeal. You know what I mean? Some protein, some type of carbs.
Mm-hmm.
Lunch, I have anywhere from 6 to 8 ounces of chicken breast, and I will do some type of carb with it, and then some type of vegetable with it. And then at night, probably go ahead and do the same thing. Depending on how I feel that day, if I feel kind of, it's going to sound kind of vain of me, but if I feel kind of bloated that day from whatever, then I probably will not eat the carb that night, but I'll eat my vegetables and whatever protein that may be. You know what I mean? And then obviously within the mix, I'll have a workout in there somewhere, and I'll have a protein shake afterwards and some type of fruit. So I used to be really, really strict on what I ate, like making sure stuff weighed a certain amount and all this other stuff. But I've just kind of got to the point to where I just try to have 3 of the most important macros. So protein, fats, and carbs. Obviously, vegetables are in the mix as well.
Now, whenever you do fall off track, okay, on the days you say, you know what, I'm just going to ugly it up.
Right.
Well, what's some of your go-to bad foods that you just love?
Man, I tell you what, a lot of people probably think it's sweets, or for a lot of people it probably is sweets. But me, it's just, it's going to sound funny, but like, I like to go to a Mexican joint and eat a bunch of chips and salsa and queso and, get whatever. But I do that, and then obviously I do like some sweets. So don't let me say I don't like. I'm not going to say I don't like sweets, but the deal with sweets is I can deny sweets and I can keep from eating them. But if I take a bite,
always on.
Yeah.
One bite.
Yeah.
Going in.
It's not. That's just how I know. That's just how I'm, I guess, geared. Like if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it.
So you're not a moderation kind of guy.
No, I mean I can be when I want to be.
Right.
But like, if it's kind of like saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna have one tonight." Going out,
Yeah.
Yeah. Then
It sounds good.
15 later, you're like, "Oh, I really, really shouldn't have done that."
I really screwed that up.
Yeah.
Now here's how I'll put a bow on this thing, because I done had you sitting here, and we'll call it good after this one right here. As far as your family goes, okay, of course, I happen to know your wife. I've gotten to meet your 2 little daughters. They're awesome. They're beautiful. Now, we talked about some of the differences these days with a lot of the kids versus how they were whenever we came up.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you put some thought into this, but I'm going to throw it at you anyway. Has it or will it affect how you're going to bring yours up? Try to be maybe some old school within this new school. I mean, how do you even think about doing that?
Man, it's tough. I'll just go ahead and throw that out there. It's tough because my 5-year-old just now started pre-K, and so it's really, really tough because obviously she understands and sees how other kids in her class, what maybe they get to bring to lunch, or it's very small right now. but those type of situations will lead to bigger things. So the other day, she didn't want to eat lunch at school. She wanted to bring her own lunch. Well, we're like, wait, you always want to eat, lunch at school on Thursdays, whatever. She's like, no, I really want to bring my lunch. So then my wife's making her a lunch, and she's like, well, I need a dessert. Well, I looked at Ellie like, you need a dessert? Like, what do you mean? She's like, well, all the kids at school have a dessert. And so I looked at her, I was like, so the only reason you want your lunch today, because normally you eat the school's food today, the only reason you want your lunch today is because you want a dessert because the rest of your kids have a dessert. And she basically said, yeah. And I was like, well, you're not getting a dessert.
Did you stick with it?
Yes. And I said, there's going to be a lot of things that your friends at school are going to have that you're not going to have. And not that that's fair or unfair, but that's just the way it's going to be. And so it's just, I don't know, man, it's going to be really tough. So I'm going to try to be old school, but obviously I'm going to try to be understanding at the same time.
Right.
Like, I'm going to have to understand the era and whatnot. But I feel like you can raise your child any way you want to raise your child. I mean, there's going to be a lot of influences from, other children in class and whatnot, and how their mommies, or daddies do certain things with them. But goes back to building relationships. You got to have it. So if I build a great relationship with my daughter, then she's going to respect the fact that I want it to be a certain way. Or if I don't want her, her curfew's 11 and not 12:30. You know what I'm saying? Don't, as long as she respects me, whatever, then, I think she will abide by those rules. I also feel like parents, like I said earlier, are getting away too much. Anyway, they have all this crazy stuff out now that you can have GPSs on cell phones, and you can do all this, get their text messages received to your cell phone. Like, to me, like,
I did not know about that. I knew about the GPS part, but I didn't know that
and they can have it where, like, I know a mom that has her son's text messages delivered to her in an app.
Oh, jeez.
You know what I mean?
It's getting real.
No, it is, and it's sad
That's
though,
dangerous,
because
man.
I mean, basically you're trying to eliminate any type of failure that they're going to have, but then how are they going to learn from that situation? Like, if you just keep eliminating and moving obstacles out of your children's way, then they're never going to understand how to overcome adversity or to learn from a mistake. Like, I really, really don't get that. And I really hope that me and my wife are on the same picture later on, because I don't want a GPS. Right. I don't want to know text messages.
I'm pretty sure you don't want to have to do that.
I don't. Well, yeah. I mean, here's the deal. Even like if you build, like I said, it goes back to building relationships. If you build a relationship with your child, and you trust that child, and that child trusts you, then they should be willing and like wanting to open up to you, talk to you about certain situations.
Right.
And obviously, as a parent, though, like, I'll be honest, I probably won't want to know some of the stuff. Because it's inevitable. Like, I'm not going to say that my daughter, when she's in high school, she's never going to go to a party until she's in college. Or she's never going to try alcohol until she's in college. Am I condoning that? No. But I'm a realist. Okay, I know it's going to happen. But do I want to know about it? Not necessarily. Depending on the situation. You know what I mean? But now, do I want her to be able to, like, if I don't want her to be scared of me, though, at the same sense where, like, maybe she drove with friends to a party and she drank or whatever. I want her to have enough faith into me that she can call me and I can come get her.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now,
As
that's
opposed
going
to
to
her fearing the wrath.
Yeah, fearing. Like, don't get me wrong, though. I'm going to be very disappointed.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be extremely disappointed. But I also want to have a relationship with my daughter to where if a situation like that is, that she would be okay. I mean, and I know that sounds crazy.
No, I actually get it.
You know what I mean? I know that sounds crazy, but I would rather have that relationship than for her to fear me and just try to hide everything. You know what I'm trying to say? And
yeah, I do. And I've seen some parents go all the way left and take your advice literally and end up being a friend to their
exactly.
kids.
That's what I was trying to say. I know that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't want, I'm not her father to be her friend. I'm her father to be a disciplinarian. But at the same time, I'm there for the best, for her betterment.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So if there's a situation like that, I just want her to be able to, understand that she's going to be in trouble, but it's not going to be like.
Yeah, you still got her back.
Right.
Now, who's the good cop between you and Kylie?
Man, week to week it switches.
Is that right?
I really feel like it switches because I will say that I have I'm the one that has the more patience.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And
not sure I would have guessed that, man.
Right.
Not because of her, but because of how I know you.
Right. So I have the more patience out of us, and she kind of she'll just kind of flip sometimes, and I kind of have to reel her back in, and I don't do that. I don't try to do that in front of the kids because I don't want it to look like that. Yeah. Right. I don't want it to look like that, but we'll talk about it after the fact. But I don't really know who's the good cop, to be honest with you, because they'll try to run Kylie over, and then I'll say something, and then they stop.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that also doesn't really. My wife's not real thrilled about that either, but.
I'm helping you out.
Right, yeah. But you know what I'm saying?
I do.
But
it's kind of situational.
It is. Sometimes depends on, probably depends on whose nerves they're getting on. If they're getting on Kylie's and she flips, well, then here I am. Not being the good cop, because I'm not one of those big, like, if they get in trouble, I'm not trying to reassure them and hug them and stuff, because they already know that you love them.
Right.
You don't have to go hug them, tell them,
yeah,
you really messed up, but I love you, and all that stuff. Like, they know that
I
love them.
And you know you messed up.
Right, go to your bedroom. Like, don't come out. Go to your bedroom. Go to timeout.
That's how you do that right there.
Yeah.
Well, look, Delk, man, I appreciate you spending time, dog. You know what I mean? We covered a lot of stuff here, and it took a while to get here and sat down, but I'm glad you came through. And, folks, I thank y'all for listening, for those of you who took some time, and I'll drop this one in a couple of weeks, and you'll see back from me soon. Later.